All the legitimate concerns about AIDS and avian flu, I want to talk about the other pandemic, which is cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, all of which are completely preventable for at least 95% of people just by changing diet and lifestyle. And what's happening is that there's a globalization of illness occurring. The people are starting to eat like us and live like us and die like us. And in one generation, for example, Asia has gone from having one of the lowest rates of heart disease and obesity and diabetes to one of the highest. And in Africa, cardiovascular disease equals the HIV and AIDS deaths in most countries. So there's a critical window of opportunity we have to make an important difference that can affect the lives of literally millions of people and practice preventive medicine on a global scale. Heart and blood vessel diseases still kill more people, not only in this country, but also worldwide than everything else combined, and yet it's completely preventable for almost everybody. It's not only preventable, it's actually reversible. And for the last almost 29 years, we've been able to show that by simply changing diet and lifestyle, using these very high-tech, expensive, state-of-the-art measures to prove how powerful these very simple and low-tech and low-cost interventions can be, like quantitative arteriography before and after a year and cardiac PET scans. We showed a few months ago, we published the first study showing that you can actually stop or reverse the progression of prostate cancer by making changes in diet and lifestyle. And 70% regression in the tumor growth or inhibition of the tumor growth compared to only 9%
Researchers in France and the United States have recently reported that baboons are able to think abstractly. It has been known for some time that chimpanzees are capable of abstract thought, but baboons are a more distant relation to mankind. In the experiment, scientists trained two baboons to use a personal computer and a joystick. The animals had to match computer designs which were basically the same, but had superficial differences. In the experiment, the baboons performed better than would be expected by chance. The researchers describe their study in an article in the Journal of Experimental Psychology.
Now, the average adult has about 5 liters of blood flowing inside his body. Blood is the fluid of life, growth, and health. It transports oxygen from the lungs to body tissue and carbon dioxide from body tissue to the lungs. It transports nourishment from digestion and hormones from glands throughout the body. It transports disease-fighting substances to tissues and waste to the kidneys. Blood is alive because it contains living cells. Red blood cells and white blood cells are responsible for nourishing and cleansing the body. Since the cells are alive, they need nourishment. Vitamins and minerals keep the blood healthy. Blood cells have a definite life cycle, just as all living organisms do. Approximately 55% of blood is plasma, a straw-colored clear liquid. Liquid plasma carries the solid cells and platelets. When the human body loses a little bit of blood through a minor wound, the platelets help the blood clot so that the bleeding stops. You would bleed to death without the platelets. Your body is always making new blood inside your bones. When the human body loses a lot of blood through a major wound, that blood has to be replaced through a blood transfusion from other people. But everybody's blood is not the same. There are 4 different blood types. Plus, your body has Rh factors which make it even more unique. Blood received through a transfusion must match your own. Sometimes patients donate their own blood when they are scheduled to have major surgery so that they will have a perfect match. It is called an autologous blood donation.
There are a suite of enzymes that are involved in the capture and release of carbon dioxide, and we're synthesizing some molecules that can mimic this behavior with the hope that they can be sprayed on crops much in the same way as a fertilizer and will be taken up by the plant and will increase the concentration of carbon dioxide around rubisco inside the plant and increase its activity and photosynthetic yields. Now, we have already synthesized this suite of molecules and have shown that they can capture and release carbon dioxide, and we're testing their effect on rubisco that's been extracted from plants and seeing really, really exciting
In reality, providing families and their incarcerated loved ones with regular communication is not just the right thing to do. It's also the most fiscally responsible and safe thing to do. If you think taxpayers shouldn't be on the hook for phone calls for people who have committed crimes, remember this. The most expensive rates are charged in jails, where the majority of people are awaiting trial and not yet convicted. Prison wages range from nothing to a few cents an hour, so it's hard-working, tax-paying families that are paying for calls. And maintaining strong community ties is one of the most important factors in a person's successful re-entry upon release. It improves housing, employment, and social outcomes, making it less likely that people need government support or end up back in prison. The bottom line is that prison telecom corporations and the thousands of others in the prison industry prioritize profit as they promote the caging of people to exploit them and their families.
With my colleagues Violeta Moreno-Lax and Loredana Leo, we filed the case at the European Court of Human Rights. We argue that Italy, as well as Europe, cannot rely on Libyan militia to sidestep their own accountability. On a high level of generality, the question is, when is a point of contact established between a person in need of protection and a state that can protect them? I've called this moment the human rights encounter. It is a dramatic moment in which legal commitments are put to an existential test. It's not about human rights law generally, but a particular person in a particular time, about simple commitments we have to each other as persons. It is not merely by chance that the sea becomes the environment for this large-scale struggle for liberation across borders. As for the court, it is recognized the human rights encounter when it's physical and direct.
"14 years ago, I stood in the Supreme Court to argue my first case. And it wasn't just any case. It was a case that experts called one of the most important cases the Supreme Court had ever heard. It considered whether Guantanamo was constitutional and whether the Geneva Conventions applied to the war on terror. It was just a handful of years after the horrific attacks of September 11th. The Supreme Court had 7 Republican appointees and 2 Democratic ones, and my client happened to be Osama bin Laden's driver. My opponent was the Solicitor General of the United States, America's top courtroom lawyer. He'd argued 35 cases. I wasn't even 35 years old. And to make matters worse, the Senate, for the first time since the Civil War, passed a bill to try and remove the case from the docket of the Supreme Court. Now, the speaking coaches say, I'm supposed to build tension and not tell you what happens. But the thing is, we won. How? Today, I'm going to talk about how to win an argument at the Supreme Court or anywhere.
When I was about 8 years old, I first heard about something called climate change or global warming. Apparently that was something humans had created by our way of living. I was told to turn off the lights to save energy and to recycle paper to save resources. I remember thinking that it was very strange that humans, who are an animal species among others, could be capable of changing the Earth's climate. Because if we were, and if it was really happening, we wouldn't be talking about anything else. As soon as you turn on the TV, everything would be about that. Headlines, radio, newspapers. You would never read or hear about anything else, as if there was a world war going on. But no one ever talked about it. If burning fossil fuels was so bad that it threatened our very existence, how could we just continue like before? Why were there no restrictions? Why wasn't it made illegal?
Banks manage money for individual people, corporations, and the government. Banks provide a number of important services for you and your family. Most importantly, they're a safe place to store your money. They also provide an easy way for you to transfer money from one place to another. When you write a personal check, the check authorizes the bank to give your money to the person or business whose name is on the check. Of course, banks also lend money. Ordinary people take out bank loans for a number of reasons: to pay for college, to buy or remodel a home, to start or expand a business, and so forth. Banks provide these services to individuals. However, their main function is to lend large sums of money, for example, to corporations. When people or corporations borrow money from a bank, they must, of course, pay interest, a percentage of the money they borrowed.
There's a possibility you could be one of them.
Indeed, in many ways, immigrants love this country the most.
People keep doing what they do because the vast majority